In lesson 1-3, we'll be talking about integers and absolute value. We will compare and order integers and find their absolute value. Okay, so we're going to be looking at a lot of number lines today. So a negative number obviously is to the left of 0 on a number line. So if we get a number line going here, here's 0, and we're going to have positive numbers here and negative numbers here. Okay, we call negative numbers integers. Okay, so an integer is like -1, -3. Also, we can call 0, 1, 2, 15. We can call all of these number integers, okay? But if we just wanted to talk about positive numbers like 0, 1, 2, and 3, these are called whole numbers. But as soon as we include our negatives, then we call them integers. So this year we're going to be dealing with a lot of integers and also eventually rational numbers. Okay, a coordinate would be, the location of a point or of data value. Okay, so coordinates, a lot of times we think of our XY coordinate plane, and then we can have both an X value and a Y value. But today when we're just doing number lines, then we're just talking about, the X values and whether they are positive or negative. An inequality would be like saying that 2 is less than 5. So that would be an inequality, and we'll be able to talk about those when we're dealing with absolute values. And this is something that I want everyone to write is, along with everything else, but an absolute value means the distance from 0. Okay, so whenever I ask you the absolute value of a number, what I'm asking you is what is that value's distance from 0? So I could ask you what is the absolute value of 3, and the symbol for absolute value are these straight up and down lines. And so how far is 3 from 0? Well, it's 3 units away. And also the absolute value of -3, if you were to count how far it is from 0, -3 is also 3 units from 0. So it's not about just taking the opposite. It's about asking how far is it from 0, and a distance is always positive. So when we're going and traveling a distance, we think about a positive value or a positive distance, okay? So again, the distance from 0, that's what the absolute value is checking. Okay, so it says replace the dot with a less than or greater than symbol to make -2 dot -1 a true sentence, and graph each integer on a number line. So I'm going to go ahead and put 0 right here, and then to the right is always positive. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, and actually I don't need any positive numbers because all I need to do is go negative. Now after 0 we go to -1, and then we go to -2 and -3. Now let's plot both of those points on the coordinate. Okay, so we have -2 is right here, and -1 is right here. Okay, now the number that is closer to 0 actually has a greater value. Okay, because if it's closer to 0, that means it's closer to being positive. So when I say -2 and compare it to -1, -2 is actually less than -1. Okay, the absolute value is greater. The absolute value of -2 is 2. It's 2 units from 0. Okay, but that's not what we're asking. We're asking about the value of that number, okay? And -1 actually has a greater value. So -2 is less than -1. It's important that we write the problem in the same way it's written here. So here they have -2 first. So in your answer, you should always put -2 first rather than flipping it around, and that could confuse us. All right, now it says evaluate. Absolute value of 5 minus the absolute value of 5. So we actually have, if we think of PEMDAS, we have some grouping symbols here. So we have to take care of our grouping symbols first. So I'm going to rewrite it. Absolute value of 5 minus the absolute value of 5. All right, what is the absolute value of 5? Well, how far is 5 from 0? Well, it is 5 units from 0. So now I can lose the parentheses. I can drop it because I've evaluated the absolute value. And then minus, that just comes straight down, okay? And what is the absolute value of 5 here? Well, it's still 5. And now 5 minus 5 is 0. So now we have correctly evaluated the absolute value of 5 minus the absolute value of 5. Okay, so I'm going to copy this one. Absolute value of 6 minus the absolute value of negative 5. Okay, so first, again, PEMDAS, we must first evaluate our grouping symbols. So the absolute value of 6 is 6. The absolute value of negative 5. So how far is negative 5 from 0? So here's 0, and we would go negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, and last but not least, we have negative 5 right here. So we just count the distance. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units from 0. So it just becomes a 5. And the subtraction comes straight down. So 6 minus 5, that equals 1. So now we have correctly evaluated that expression. Okay, so now we have some stuff to do inside of the grouping symbol. So remember, PEMDAS, we have to do what's inside first. All right, so I'm going to rewrite it. 6 minus 9, I'm going to take the absolute value minus the absolute value of 5 minus 3. Okay, so now I'm going to leave the absolute value symbol there because I have to do what's inside first. I have to do this first. So 6 minus 9, I have a positive 6, and I'm subtracting 9 from it. So I have 6 and I owe 9. I have $6 and I owe $9, so it means I owe $3. Okay, bring your negative down or your subtraction down. Okay, and I'm going to leave the absolute value signs here. Okay, I have $5 and I owe $3, so it means I have $2. Now I'm going to take care of my absolute value symbol. So how far is negative 3 from 0? Well, it's 3 units from 0. Minus, how far is 2 units from 0? Well, it's 2 units. Okay, so positive 2 is 2 units from 0. Now we had the minus symbol, so we just kept bringing that down. We had subtraction. And 3 minus 2 is 1. So that's our answer for this problem. Notice again, we had to take care of what was inside the absolute value symbol first, and then we can evaluate the actual absolute value symbol. All right, so we have the absolute value of x plus 13, and then we have to substitute. So the next step, we will keep the absolute value symbol. We will substitute negative 4 in, and we're still adding 13. Okay, so how far is negative 4 from 0? Well, it's 4 units. So now I can get rid of the absolute value sign, and we're going to add 13. So 4 plus 13, that's 17. Okay, and we're done. Redwoods. The average height of a mature redwood tree is 220 feet, give or take 20 feet. It says to graph the equation x minus 220, and we're going to take the absolute value of that, which equals 20, on a number line to determine the least and greatest average height of a redwood tree. All right, so what we know about absolute values is that we're always going to end up with a positive value. Okay, so when we see that this 20 is positive, we know that the answer could actually be either 20 or negative 20. Okay, so we could get an answer of 20, a positive 20 or negative 20. Well, let's think about what values for x would give us a positive 20. So what minus 220 would give us 20? Well, that would be 240, right? So 240 minus 220 would give us 20. Okay, now what would actually give us negative 20? Well, then I would have to be 20 less. So I could actually be 200 minus 220, and that would be negative 20. And then once I take the absolute value, of course, I'm going to get positive 20. So my number line here, on this end, I'm going to put 240, okay, right in here. And then down here, I'm going to put 200. Okay, and actually, x can be anywhere from here to here. Okay, so as long as x fits in this part of the graph, all right, then it would work because it says give or take 20 feet. So that kind of means, you know, it could be in between because it's give or take 20 feet. Obviously, if it had to be exactly 20 feet, then you would only have the answers of 200 and 240. But again, we just want to know the least and greatest average height of a redwood tree. So I guess, you know, they just want to know those one numbers. They want to know the least average, and they want to know the maximum or the greatest average. So the least average would be 200, and the greatest average would be 240. Okay, and in here we have 220. Okay, so obviously to get here, we're subtracting 20, and to get here, we're adding 20. So there's our difference, plus or minus, give or take 20. All right, so our answer for this would be 200, and our greatest would be 240 feet. Of course, we want to include our units with our answer. Okay, and that's our last example for lesson 1-3, integers and absolute value. You'll want to check the Moodle page to find out what your assignment is in the book.